Hi, I'm Fernando Bretos. I'm Director of Museum Volunteers for the Environment at Patricia and Philip Frost Museum of Science. MUVE is a habitat restoration project where we engage Miami residents to restore coastal habitats. It's also a citizen science effort where we're engaging those same volunteers to come back to areas that have been restored to measure that environmental change. Is it working? Is native wildlife benefiting? Are ecological and economic conditions improving? I'm standing at the site of our first restoration in 2007. We're on Arthur Lamb Road in Virginia Key. And behind me, you'll see some younger red mangrove seedlings. These were all planted by volunteers and have grown over time to fill out this red mangrove habitat. We're already seeing birds coming back. We're seeing this place really thicken out and really take on a different appearance. We encourage our volunteers to come back and look at a place like this on Arthur Lamb Road. The seedlings they planted when they were this big are now 8 feet tall, and they're thriving red mangrove trees. We feel that these experiences, restoration and citizen science experiences, give them something very real to look back at and feel accomplished about.
My name is Shelley King. I'm the program coordinator for Museum Volunteers for the Environment at the Frost Museum of Science. I'm standing here today at the newly restored hardwood hammock at Virginia Key North Point. Behind me you can see some of the 3,200 trees that were planted in 2015 by over 1,000 volunteers. We now are engaging some of those same volunteers to participate in citizen science activities, monitoring the restoration effort here at Virginia Key North Point.
The island has an interesting history. It's mostly fill. There was an island here before settlement, and most of that fill has been coming from the Port of Miami through dredging projects. So in order to make the Port of Miami deeper, they've had to dig and move that fill somewhere. That somewhere has been Virginia Key over the past 5 decades. Where I'm standing now only 2 years ago was about 40 feet higher. And when they've dumped that fill, it's a very low quality soil coming from the bottom of the bay. Invasive plants have moved in very aggressively. And invasive plants are a really terrible problem here in Miami, particularly this one we see all over Virginia Key called Australian pine. It grows very aggressively. It doesn't allow anything else in. And so this project was about removing all of the fill and the invasive plants and replacing that with native habitat.
So some of these volunteers are monitoring the success of the growth of the plants that were planted this year by looking at fruiting and flowering times, as well as the diameter of the trunks of each of these trees. We're also monitoring changes in biodiversity here at the site. So volunteers use a smartphone app called iNaturalist in order to log plants and animals that they find here at the site. Those observations are then used by scientists worldwide. After volunteers take observations about the trees that have been planted here, they upload those observations into a national project called Project Budburst. And this is a national database that allows scientists to track climate changes over time based on changes in tree phenology, or the times that trees fruit and flower.
We now have a hardwood hammock, which is our type of tropical forest here in Miami. Behind me is a freshwater wetland, and behind that is a dune. And we left that at elevation. And that dune is really significant because it's something of a living shoreline. Instead of a seawall, it's an adaptive living structure that can withstand sea level rise and changes in the environment. And just past that is actually one of 3 active loggerhead sea turtle nesting sites in all of Dade County. So in this small area, we have 4 types of different habitat.
I'm standing on the dune at Virginia Key North Point. This dune was replanted by volunteers in 2014. They planted about 30,000 sea oats that all started about a foot tall. As you can see, they have thrived here on the dune. They've gotten quite tall. This is all very positive for the outcome of the dune and the restoration itself, because all of these sea oats form an intertwining of roots underneath the sand and work to stabilize the shoreline.
So the restoration work we do is done primarily by volunteers, but there are several important partners that make it possible. The landowner is the City of Miami that provides a huge amount of logistics help for us when we're bringing volunteers out here. Also is Miami-Dade County, the Durham, which is responsible for doing all of the permitting and really the contractual work on a site like this. They've been really enormous, the kind of the heavy lifting in making a site like this restorable. And our funders, we're very, very grateful to the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, FedEx, Wells Fargo Bank has put in considerable, not just financial resources, but also volunteers from their local offices that have come out here and been a part of the restoration effort.